and welcome to another Aotearoa Rugby Pod. After a statement weekend of rugby, we saw huge performances from France and Ireland to get through despite all of the injuries they copped. We saw the Drua give it to the Crusaders in the end, which was amazing. Plus, we saw the Manawa continue on their way to what is likely in a couple of weeks' time a Super Rugby Aotearoa title, unbeaten through all the pool play heading into the semi-finals. So much to talk, throwing into the line out. What is a ruck exactly? All sorts of things to get into. No one in the studio with me. James Parsons is over on the North Shore. They revoked his visa, wouldn't let him over the Harbour Bridge. And over in Japan, Bryn Hall as well, coming to us from his professional outfit over there. Guys, what a weekend of footy. Bryn, you asked for a statement from France, and that's what you got.
It was an unbelievable match. I think the French, talking about an explosion, it was a lot more than that, to be honest. It was a bit of dynamite chucked in Twickenham Stadium and blowing up the stadium because it was outstanding. I think we'll touch on a little bit more around the details around it. Dupont, man, what a statement game for him to be able to have a match that he did. He had his hands in absolutely everything, different types of variety. And look, the French are going to be tough to beat if they're going to play like that. Defensively, unbelievable. But again, we'll go into a little bit more detail. But yeah, they were outstanding, and a performance that we were probably waiting for the last couple of weeks in that Six Nations.
Okay, off the back of that, let's get into the quick fire round. Jipper, let's start with you. Individual performance for the week for you that was absolutely jaw-dropping from any player.
Oh, for me, it was Sam Cane. And I know it wouldn't be like the highlights package, but I think he started the season so well. 12 tackles, he's a top defender. A couple of turnovers, great in that breakdown, and then 24 carry meters with 8 carries. He just was busy throughout the full 70 minutes, and his form's red hot.
Yeah, I had a couple. I could have gone Sam Cane. Luke Jacobson, who I thought for the Chiefs played really, really well. Hoskins Tutu had a great game for the Blues game. He was influential. But for me, I've actually gone Frank Lamani for the Ndrua. I thought he was outstanding in that result in Lautoka.
Okay, the next one. After 3 weeks, for you guys, who is winning Super Rugby?
Well, if you're going to go after a three game kind of schedule, and I guess having a decision around that, you'd have to go with the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs at the moment, the way they're playing, the consistency that they're playing, more so their attack. I'm loving their attack at the moment. So you have to go the Chiefs and the Blues. I think with their performance against the Hurricanes and really finding it out, really grinding out a tough win, it would have to be the Blues in second. But I think for the Crusaders as well, I think if you're going to go against them, it's at your own peril, because I think at the back end of the season they'll come good. But at the moment, after 3 rounds, you'd have to say the Chiefs and the Blues would be the favourites.
Ooh, yeah. 1 win from 3 so far. Not a great start. Jipper?
Chiefs has to be Chiefs. They're clinical at the moment. Such a great brand of footy they're playing. The only thing that could trip them up is if any of their key players get injured. So hopefully that doesn't happen and they can keep that dream start rolling.
Hey, we're going to get into the Drua versus the Crusaders in just a moment, but based off what you saw in Lautoka, yes or no, should World Rugby mandate a certain number of yearly trips for Tier 1 nations to Tier 2 nations to play test matches in those countries?
I don't think you'll have to mandate it. You look at the scenes. I know there probably isn't many players lining up to go play in that heat in the afternoon, but look, I think it would be outstanding to see some Tier 1 nations go there, and the people would absolutely go ballistic for it.
The scenes that you saw on the weekend, it's only, I think the more opportunities that they do get to be able to play Tier 1 nations, it's only going to grow, I guess, their ability to be able to have games at home against Tier 1 nations. Because, imagine in England, in Ireland, being able to go to Fiji and I guess go into play in those kind of surroundings. It's something completely different. And we'll touch on how hard it is to be able to play in Fiji. But I think the more time that they can get there, it'd be great for the country and I guess for the brand of footy, for the Fijians to be able to see not only just the All Blacks or the kind of Southern Hemisphere teams, the Northern Hemisphere teams would be great for them to be able to get into Fiji and play a brand of footy in that kind of weather.
We'll talk about that weather a bit more than Bryn. Like 25-24 to the Drua over the Crusaders. The Crusaders made a little comeback to be back in the game there. But how difficult is it?
Oh, I can only speak from experience. I've heard Lautoka is actually a lot hotter than it is in Suva. But yeah, it's tough. The conditions in Fiji are just a little bit different. It's sticky, the humidity, and also the Fijians and the ability that they play when they're at home. They play completely different. Whether that be experience that I've played with New Zealand Māoris playing Fiji. I just remember playing in a very hot, similar game. And they just they beat us up and really just convincingly beat us. So, but in saying that, the Crusaders were their own worst enemies. They had a lot of handling errors, and I think for them, they won't be using that as an excuse. they would have prepared knowing what that week was going to look like. And I guess they just gave them too many opportunities. And you could see in that last 20 minutes when it's tight, you get the crowd involved. And with that weather, it was a tough outing. I think, to be honest, they were lucky in the end, I think, to even have the chance to be leading with a minute to go, because I thought the Ndrua were the better team predominantly than most of that game. And, the Crusaders went to their line out more and set piece. But in the end, I think it was deserving of how I think the game went, with the Fiji Ndrua playing a lot better than the Crusaders did.
Jip, why is that?
You've got to credit Mick Byrne and his coaching staff. Like we said at the start of the year, that if they get the balance of their game right, they can be a threat. Both Bryn and I had them slipping into the top 8 at the start of the season, but, we sort of used that quick tap they did against the Brumbies last season. They've just defended 15 minutes. They did a quick tap, they turned it over, and then the Brumbies scored, seconds later. If you look, they only had 2 rucks inside their own 22. Last year we were seeing numbers, up to the high 20s of them trying to play out of their half. 2 rucks in their own 22 is a massive sign that they are not prepared to risk playing too much down their end, and they'll chance their arm further up the field. And that ability to have the quick tap that led to, I know it was a knocked-on try, but, led to that opportunity that Frank Lamani took. It's those moments that are spot on. Sometimes he's going to have to hold that and kick to the corner, but they've just got that balance right. They know their game. They obviously had 17 weeks to prepare in Fiji, so the conditions, they were used to it. It was no different for them. So that definitely played a part. But, I mean, that's part of their weaponry, isn't it? And being able to have those 6 home matches this season, it is going to be brutal to travel there.
And Bryn, from a Crusaders point of view, where are they needing to improve? Because it's quite un-Crusader-like to see them perform the way they have in a couple of the games so far this year.
I think if you're having a 3-week plan, you would have thought, 2 out of 3 would have been probably the ideal result, giving guys opportunities to be able to go over to Fiji, and probably was a little bit underdone around that. Obviously, if they took this full strength side there, it could have been a different story. But they, traditionally in games like that, Razor has shown faith in being able to give guys opportunities. And to be honest, it's your job and your expectation to be able to perform when you're given that opportunity. And so, I guess the players internally will be pretty disappointed with how they performed, and I guess not getting that result. But I think what they will do, the biggest concern that I have for the Crusaders at the moment is who's going to be in their midfield. Because I think David Harvilli is going to be a massive loss for that group. I'm not too sure how long that injury is going to be, but you saw against the Highlanders when you have Davey at 12, and what he brings for that group is really important. And with Jack Goodhue being injured, it's going to have to give guys another opportunity, like a guy like Dallas McLeod, who has been in and around that environment, been able to step up into that position of coming into 12. So it's going to, in a massive game, you've got the Blues this weekend, who I think it's at Eden Park, if I'm not mistaken, and they'll be chopping at the bit to be able to get that result in the final last year, coming at a good time, and they'll be thinking it's a good time to get the Crusaders. And I know what their week will look like, but I guess at the moment, the guys that went over there weren't able to get the job done, and I guess the review from that will be pretty tough. And then they'll get the guys back on board with the likes of Richie and the guys that missed out on that game. Probably going to see a lot more consistency with selections now, I think, moving forward. The Fiji Ndrua was a good opportunity for a lot of young men to get an opportunity and play. But I think you're going to start seeing a little bit more settled side within the next fortnight to 3 weeks with the squad to try and build some confidence and some results.
From your experience, what would Razor be like in this scenario when you're down a couple? What are the kind of messages that he's generally getting through? How does he approach a challenging situation?
I remember last year when we played the Waratahs, and it was a pretty disappointing result that we had. And I think I remember that review pretty vividly around our intent. What was your intent like in that game, and how was your work rate off the ball? And I think from that kind of game, looking back, our intent and our effort areas weren't great. And so I guess that's where the first plate they'll look at around how was your intent and how was your effort. I think the best thing about that is it's a good chance to be able to, I guess, reconnect that with that. And then knowing against the Blues, you've got to be able to do that and have that intent and work rate off the ball, because against a Blues side, that's what you need. They're a quality side. And if you're not on for the full 80 collectively, you don't get it wrong. So I think that's where they will start. That's how the review will kind of start. And then from there, they'll have the review of where they can get better, the preview of the Blues and how they can look forward. But, they'll take the learnings from that on a day one. And then from there, I can imagine it'll be a test match like preview and I guess preparation week, knowing what's coming ahead with the Blues at Eden Park.
Let's have a look at the Blues, Chipper. I know you love to talk a bit of Blues footy every now and then. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck made a big impact in ball in hand. If people are always looking, I suppose, because it's him versus the All Black incumbent, Jordie Barrett, they don't necessarily align in one-on-one matchups. But how did you feel Roger showcased himself in a game like that?
Oh, yeah. Look, I think he's in good form. He's had a couple of big games. I know that obviously the loss against the Brumbies, but he was, man of the match internally at the Blues for that game against, and he's backed it up again this week. So he's just going about his business. I think I suppose the hype has sort of died down, and it's just allowed him to focus and zone in on what he wants to do in that 12 jersey and make a statement and get himself back in that black jersey as well.
What does he need to do?
Well, I think it's the consistency. If he can show that level of performance week in, week out, like a Jordie Barrett does at this level, and I think it'll bring the best out of Rico. So the stronger that combination can be, the stronger his chances of, obviously pushing. Maybe not for a starting spot, but definitely, that 23 spot. Because we know he can play on the wing as well. He's pretty versatile, probably could, not sure if he's been tested at centre, but, he does have the ability to play multiple spaces. But your only currency as a player is performance, and consistent performance will be what Ian Foster is looking for. But you've got to love the amount of involvements. He's getting himself involved. He's getting the ball in his hands. He's making, great reads defensively. So, long may it continue.
One thing that I'd like to see a little bit more is his variety in kicking. I think at the moment, at that next level you talked around the 12s, especially with Jordie and Davey, their skill set around being able to take pressure off your 10 or your 9 with the kicking game. I think if Rog can be able to get that within the duration of this competition, we can see a little bit more growth around that. It doesn't have to be long kicks. It can be a little attacking kicks in behind to be able to give something different, because I think you're right. I think his ability at 12 and understanding the attacking brand, whether it be distribution or good ball carriers, I think it's been really, really good. And I think he'll continue to keep getting better at that. Just would like to see a little bit of variation with his kick.
There is a fine balance. He doesn't want to be putting in kicks that aren't part of the plan. If you look at a lot of the Blues play, they do like to go to their contestable kicks off 10. I agree, there is those attacking kick opportunities like a Havili, like a Jordie Barrett does show. So he will want to develop that, but you also don't want to just get fixated on and go away from what makes him great.
Beauden Barrett is top of the kicks and play stats with 41, so they obviously, like you say, off 10 is what they want.
Yeah, especially obviously they're clearing kicks, but also they love their contestable kicking game with Caleb Clark and AJ Lamb and co on those edges. So, and that more often comes off Bodie, rather a Finlay Christie or a 12. But I totally get when he's in that All Black jersey, he will have to be kicking, because that's a big part of what makes that team system work.
That's a tough thing to learn, Bryn, at the top level.
You don't have to go out and try to do 10 or 5 kicks, 5 to 10 kicks as a 12. I think it's just maybe it might be 1 or 2 in the game to be able to fix the defense and thinking, man, is Rog going to kick here? Is that an option there? But at the same time, they do kick a lot off Bodie at the moment. I think they have changed a little bit last year. They did a lot of kicking off Finlay Christie and still have the ability to be able to kick off 9, but have actually really enjoyed that jip kicking off Bodie, because the ability that it takes away the escort game of being able to try block off the 9 is a lot easier. But it seems like the Blues have been able to get the pinpoint accuracy off Bodie and then being able to hunt through and blitz through off that ruck, which is a lot easier than going off 9. So I've really enjoyed that balance with the Blues, actually. And it just shows a bit of, I guess, growth in their game and seeing how they can try and adapt and being able to be a little bit better. And I think that area of the game has boded really, really well in the first 3 weeks of the comp.
In that game, as the Hurricanes lost 19-25 to the Blues, Peter Lakai showed that he is it. Wow, coming in, big shoes to fill, with Ardie Savea out. What were his stats? They were pretty strong. 18 tackles, 75 metres and carries. Jipper, he looks like the business.
Yeah, he's busy. He's got a massive engine. He's incredibly fit. He's physical. He wants to be involved very much. I don't want to put that Ardie tag on him, because I don't think there is another Ardie Savea, but he's definitely got a great mix of the same attributes, and that hunger and that relentlessness. Man, there's just his strength for such a young man. He's only going to develop more and more. He's a clear power athlete. The more he develops in coming years, he will not only be, because he's already a threat defensively and ball in hand, but what I think where his biggest growth will be, even if he goes up to another level, when he gets that size as the breakdown. I think he's got a massive role to play at the breakdown, moving forward in terms of moving bodies, but also getting turnovers defensively, because he likes getting in there. So if he can get another, 5 or 10 kilos on him and he keeps that same explosive style, he's got a huge future.
And when you look at that breakdown, Bryn, really, that was probably the place where the Blues got that game.
It's just a massive point for them. The ability that they can play at a high tempo, and Finlay Christie getting that ball out, it'll just wear teams out for the full 80. Other than a few line-out issues in that second half, the breakdown area is so good for the Blues. I'd probably have to say they've got the best. You have to think the best lightning quick ball in the comp, because the efficiency that they have at the breakdown with their big men, like you said, Ross, you're right. That was the winning of the area, especially 22-5 going into half time, and then the Hurricanes coming on in the second half. But that breakdown area, they are just brutal. All 8 are all brutal in that area, which just sets up the outside backs as well.
Their ability to pick and choose their moments defensively, that was a big, on the line, big call to end that game. Adrian Choate, you got a helping hand from the skipper Dalton Papali'i, but that's a bold play to go for, a counter ruck right there, midfield, but they obviously train it so much that picture was clear, and he didn't even second guess, and man, what a result! Like that is. Because you almost thought the Hurricanes were going to, run away with it. And probably, to be fair, they had such a dominant second half, they may look back and think it's one that got away from them.
Well, why don't we just jump straight into the Six Nations? We'll come back to the rest of Super Rugby at the moment, because obviously it's World Cup year. Everyone's looking. The Six Nations is an incredible competition as ever. France versus England. France 53, England 10 was something else. For France, obviously, a statement, like we mentioned earlier. For England, a statement in a completely different way about where they might be at. So, Bryn, you touched on it earlier. What is it about France that made them run over England the way that they did?
Oh, man, they were just ruthless. Man, I obviously talked about Dupont, but I just want to explain the kind of... I talk about influences with Dupont consistently on this podcast, but I don't know any other number 9 in the world that has stats like this that's been able to influence games. So he has a 50-22, which is pivotal in that game. He had a tops to Flamont to be able to set up a try, which is a little attacking kick. He chips to himself, which I don't see many 9s doing in the world, to himself to be able to set up, gets the chip to himself, kicks in the left-hand side corner, and then being able to build pressure off that. And his running game. He has heart runners. You look at one of his tries, because people are so fixated on him running with the ball close to the line, he has 2 people that's always in and around him. So you've got big ball carriers from the French that just pretty much run off him, and then they've been able to score off that. So when Dupont was playing like that for France, they're very, very tough to beat. But then also on the defensive side of the ball, they've got people that can be able to win the ball, not just in their loose forward trios. So I talked around Aldrit, who I think arguably could be the best number 8 in the world. We obviously rate Ardie Severe, but Aldrit is a world-class number 8. But then also Fiku and Dante, their ability at the breakdown defensively gets them out of a lot of trouble when teams are attacking them and going to the wide edge. They can slow down the ball and being able to stop people's momentum due to being able to get a defensive penalty. And then touching on that lastly, their defence. They are just absolutely relentless when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. And England only really, I think, the silver lining for them is in the 47th minute, Stewart's try. I think that's the DNA of what it's going to look like for England moving forward. When you had Farrell and their 10, Smith, being able to get good quick ball, having animation in and around those 2 players, they were able to score some points off some quick ball. But it just didn't happen a lot. They were actually pretty awful on the weekend, who I thought. In England, their commentators actually buried them as well with how poor they were, because mistakes, discipline, not having good feel for the game. England were in a lot of trouble. But in saying that, the French were just that much better. And I think I had Ireland at number 1. Man, it's hard to put the French not at number 1 when they're playing like that.
What little things are they doing that the other teams aren't doing?
I think it's the effort areas. I don't want to make the comparison of the All Blacks 2015 side that went on to win the World Cup, but if you look at, because they put an effort on every play, even when they're not playing well, like when against Scotland probably could have had that game. They found a way to win, and then they have an ability to put a side away. When they're on, they are ruthless. But if you use Dupont as an example, that kick chase, there's blue jerseys everywhere. The rule of thumb, get in the picture frame, in terms of kick chase. It puts Marcus Smith under pressure, and they end up getting a try from it. When your skipper's leading like that, it's pretty hard not to follow. So it's all those unseen. They get themselves in position early, so it's actually easier for them to make decisions, and it gives them time. And on the flip side, if you use a little effort area, I think it was Kyle Sinclair was over the ruck, securing the ball, and he just got blown off it and then eventually played it with his hands. It's a penalty. They take 3. It's those sorts of little things that just add up, and it just dents the confidence. When a team like England, they've got a new coach, new systems, they're clearly low on confidence, and it all just adds up. And, I don't think they've won at Twickenham for 18 years. So it's actually a massive feat to get the victory, let alone putting that many points on, especially even late in the piece, they're trying to finish games off and put sides away.
There were a couple of jaw-dropping comments off the back of that particular game when Johnny Wilkinson in the coverage said he didn't think England were that far away. It reminded me of the Billy Harmon comment the other day about their defence after they copped 60. Is Johnny on the money here? Are England that far away?
If they can sort their skill execution out, they've been there or thereabouts. They obviously made the World Cup final, but 18. Even though when they beat Wales, there were 18 turnovers, handling errors. In Sunday morning's game, it was 21 handling errors. So 21 times, 18 times, you're giving the ball back too easy, and you're normally on the back foot when they do give it away. They are their own worst enemy at the moment. Like, I know France played well and Dupont put them in the right areas, but they gifted a lot of it to them through their own execution and not being able to secure the ball.
It's a new system, and you tend to have those kind of mistakes. If it's a new system, you're trying to learn on the run of something that's new. And so I think in time, if you'd like to think that they'd be a lot more clear around their plan and the clarity around their roles, you'd have to think. And then I guess from there, like I said, the 47th minute Stewart try, if they can play like that for longer periods of time and not being able to give away skill execution errors, then they're actually going to be in a good spot. But at the moment, they're making far too many errors. And I guess when you play a team like the French, who are in this kind of form and how they played on the weekend, they gave them far too many opportunities to be able to score points. And then the scoreline reflected that. But again, there is still a little bit more time. And you like to think the longer that they do spend with the new coaching staff and maybe the new systems that have come in, they will get a lot better in that space, and they'll be setting up ready for the World Cup. That'll be their goal, the World Cup.
Jibber, do you feel for Marcus Smith? Like, he's a guy who seems to be coming in and out of the team. Whenever he plays and they don't go well, everyone just gets on Marcus Smith's back. Is he the playmaker? Is he actually doing the right things at 10? It's too hard when everything else is going wrong?
It's always brutal as a 10. Like, if the platform's going well, you get all the plaudits and the forwards get nothing. And then if it's going poorly, you get dealt to when probably the problem's in front of him. He's just not, like Bryn said, when Stewart's try, that was just dominant collisions. They were clear. They were just running direct. They were moving bodies. French defence couldn't adjust. Even with Stewart, there's 2 other white jerseys outside him and inside him running his bodies in motion to the line. And that's what gives him that one-on-one opportunity to go over the top. So I don't think it's, all on one player. I think they need to start winning the collisions and sorting out their, sort of their skill execution. And that'll allow, we know Marcus Smith is a good player. Like, you don't become a poor player overnight. Like, he does it week in, week out, in the Premiership, and he's done it for a number of years. He's just not, the team isn't gelling. Like, when there is a lot of change, it's almost the harder you try, the worse it can get at times.
We saw last year against the All Blacks when they got go forward, he was absolutely sensational. So I suppose the next question, Bryn, is when you select your 10, surely you've got to select them with the idea that your forwards are going to get dominance, and therefore you shouldn't select too conservatively. Maybe you should select a guy like Marcus Smith who's willing to try his hand. Just
watching that game on the weekend, I think having Owen Farrell at 12 is going to take a lot of pressure off Marcus Smith. And look, I know he's probably not your traditional good ball carrier, X Factor 12. But what Farrell does do, and you see in that Stewart try, just the ability that he does off the ball, communicating to the pods that are there or the outside backs or the loose forward on the edge and communicating what they need to do. And so that helps Marcus Smith to be able to just focus on his role in front of him and seeing the space in front of him. So that's what Farrell does. He's a great communicator, and he's a 10 as well. So he'll be able to know what Marcus Smith is thinking and being able to give him the info to be able to try and get his running game and being able to do that. But You can't do that as a number 10 or a 9 or a 12 or your outside backs if your forwards aren't able to be able to win collisions.
We'll get back to Super Rugby very soon and also Aotearoa, but let's carry on with Six Nations. It is World Cup year and these are huge questions and interesting answers that are coming along when we think to that tournament. Scotland 7, Ireland 22. Once again, a case of Scotland being almost there, but not quite. Jipper, where do they have to make up that difference? Because they're not far away.
They're certainly not. And I think, if they score that try before half-time rather than going out, that the momentum changes. I do think, we spoke about the Fijian draw and getting the balance right. They only had 18 kicks in play, and it was pretty even possession-wise. So I just think maybe overplaying their hand, especially coming out of their half at times, which, has worked for them. But if you don't take your opportunities when you're down the other end, and then you're trying to create them, from your own half, and it's not being executed, you've got to have something else to go to. So I think if they have like a 3-phase rule, if they haven't broken them down, then, go to your kick option. I'm not too sure. But, a guy like Finn Russell who's running the team, he will chances are, and that's what makes him great. So I'm not saying don't lose that edge, but it's just understanding at test match level, you've got to be able to nail it, especially against teams like Ireland and France.
Chip, I'm really keen for your input on the quick throw that Scotland took on their own line. I think it was George Turner, took it quickly, threw it long, Ireland grabbed it, went over for what seemed to be a try, and then it got called back. It got called back because they used the wrong ball. You use the wrong ball with a quick throw in and it will be called back. But I would have thought that rule was in place to stop the team throwing the ball in to take advantage. But if the team that's throwing the ball in doesn't take advantage of it, surely they should be punished for using the wrong ball. Have I got that wrong? That law seems ridiculous to me.
Oh, everyone knows it. Like, you'll see when the game's getting tight, if there's a ball kicked out, you'll see the odd trainer trying to put their hand out to touch the ball so that it can't be thrown in quick and things like that. So everyone knows the rule. I think, Ireland would have been well aware. But yes, theoretically, it doesn't make sense. It was their error. They got punished for their error. Then due to the rule that, they got lucky. But if anything, because the hooker threw it, was there a chance that he was assuming his line out was set? Because that is a set throw that you always throw. You can throw straight over the back when there's 2 or 3 guys set. So technically, you could probably argue the line out was set, but I didn't pause it to see how many Irish jerseys there were and Scottish jerseys.
I think Johnny Sexton was telling the ref.
I'm not going to judge him because I overthrew one against the Highlanders straight to Adam Thompson once, and he did score. So I won't be coming too hard on the odd Scottish hooker.
So is it usually the ref tells you that the numbers are there and then you throw, or how does it usually work, Jibber?
No, normally players will go 2 and 2, sir, 2 and 2 if you're looking to go quick. Around those sorts of things, so that you get confirmation in the ref's head that it's set and you're ready to go. And sometimes defensively you'll be talking to the ref, oh, yeah, they're set, so that they can't go quick.
Chip, do you want to explain that 2 on 2, just for our viewers?
Yeah, so once there's 2 players from each side, the line-out is theoretically formed. So that's what you're trying to get as a defence. If you're kicking and you're the kick chaser, it's not going to be your throw-in. You're constantly talking to the ref to say, is it set, is it set? Because then that's at least you can get into defensive position and they can't do a quick throw and try and... Because remember that the Chiefs sort of turned this on its head. Their wingers would put the ball down and just keep it by their foot and then come back to it and throw it in quickly. So there was a big focus after that, because they got a lot of reward out of it, that teams defensively were trying to get the refs to commit to the 2 and 2, so that, you had the ability to get set defensively faster.
There was another interesting call over the weekend. Kieran Crowley, the Italy coach, after losing 17-29 to Wales, was absolutely septic. I loved him because he's on international television and he's using really Kiwi terms like bloody oath. I wonder what the Italians make of bloody oath and whether they know what that means. But he did not like the idea that they weren't awarded a penalty try near their own line when I think it was Owen Williams came through and held up one of their guys after there had been a really quick tackle and then the ball popped up, and then Owen Williams came through and tackled him and held him up. He felt like there was a ruck formed. Now, if you look at the footage, there was no ruck formed because you need a person from each team over the ball on their feet to form a ruck, right? So I'm sure that for Kieran Crowley, if he looked back now, he might realise he got it wrong, but goodness me. Did you watch that video, Bryn? He just was absolutely filthy.
Passionate would be the word that I'd use. Very passionate, like a couple of other coaches that we've talked to on this podcast. But yeah, it's tough. I think for me, looking back at it, I think it was the right call. It was probably very close around the ruck interpretation around that. Even the Italian captain did talk around that. But in the end, I did think it was the right call. It was touch and go, but I think the ref in the end did get it right. But I think at the same time, as a coach, you want to put pressure on the powers that be in future. But I think for Kieran, he was obviously a bit passionate in that moment, being able to be obviously thinking it should have gone the other way.
So, Jip, even if it's the right call, is that law right? Do you feel like a player should be coming from that position after a tackle, they're coming back on defence? Should they be rewarded for not getting in behind on their side of the ball and be able to make a play like that? It feels like they were under a lot of pressure. And again, the attacking team should be rewarded, not the defensive team in that position.
Yeah, but also the laws are there, and I credit players that know them well enough. That's a skill, just like running fast or aerial game. It is a skill to know the laws and make the best out of that situation. If it's not there, then that player doesn't do that. Do you know what I mean? And I get what you're saying, but I actually like that when players utilise laws like that and for the benefit of their side and them as individuals, because it shows a depth of knowledge that is so valuable for teams to have. The ruck wasn't formed, so he was within the rights to do so. And I like that aspect of our game. It is unique, and I know sometimes people say it's confusing, but I'm sure there's a lot of young rugby players now know that law, and they'll take it to their club footy sides or school sides and be better players for it.
There's a 25th straight loss at home in the Six Nations for Italy, Jip. They've shown some promise. We talk about it each week, but they're not there.
No, they're certainly not. I got to credit the Welsh. I thought they turned up. Man, Toby Faletau was outstanding at number 8, but they took their opportunities. They looked a different side, the Welsh. Another week under Gats, they're looking to look like the team that once were before he left. I think they obviously made the 3rd and 4th playoffs against the All Blacks. So there's a lot of nice signs to like about the Welsh, but Italy just couldn't get it done, and they just were chasing their tail. They let Welsh get on top of them early, and they just couldn't get back in that game.
We talked a bit about Dupont, Bryn. Rhys Webb, he's another player who's up there as terms of halfback's concerned.
Yeah, look, he has come back, obviously, with Warren Gatland coming back. He's seen something in Rhys, and I think you saw it on the weekend, his instinctiveness around whether it be the attacking kicks or kicking in general or just even sniping abilities. He showed that in the Barbars, actually, before he returned from Welsh. And when he came on off the bench for that Barbarians game, was really good around the sniping area. So, yeah, he was massive for them. And Toby Faletau, to boot as well, was great. He put in a great performance as well. But, yeah, I think for Rhys Webb, him coming back, if they can give him that front foot ball and his ability to be able to snipe, I think it's something that brings something different. Now, that's not to say Thomas Williams isn't able to do that, because he is a running 9. But, yeah, when you have an experienced night of Rhys Webb, who's played a lot of test matches, has been a Lion, and can play like that, it's going to be massive for the Welsh moving forward.
Moving forward, they're playing France in France this weekend. That is not something that you really want to be doing right now. Jip, do you see them having any show of getting even close?
Well, as I said about the French earlier, I just think their mojo is back, certainly in terms of their style. But even if they're having an off day, they find a way to win. Man, they've just got something about them. And at home, I just think World Cup is going to be so hard to go there and beat them at home. It's probably a step too far.
Speaking of hope, Bryn, England, any hope against Ireland and Ireland?
No.
Well, it just depends with the injuries. There have been a fair few injuries in that Irish camp, which we saw and talked around. People have to play out of position. So it'd be interesting to see how their depth is tested when it comes. But I think with what we've seen with England, you have to think that Ireland will get the job done there, but you never know. It is the Six Nations, and the Irish and English always have a great rivalry. But I think for me, the way that they've won with a good team, and they've obviously shown ability to be able to win with a lot of injuries and being solution focused, I think it'll just be one step too far for the English to get a result against Ireland.
That was straight up nut from Jip. Nut.
Yeah, I just don't think the issues aren't going to be turned around in a week. I just don't believe so.
Excellent. Well, why don't we jump from there into our tipping comp? If you would like to join us on our tipping comp, and you can go to Super Rugby Tipping, we'll bring down a little banner down here. You can see exactly where the URL is. Come on to our league, Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Join us. You will probably beat us. There's no doubt about that. I don't think we're doing too badly, you know. I'm only 177th in the league. Daniel McKenzie is our leader at the moment with 15 points. Chip is at 94th. I'm at 177. Bryn, same points as me at 185. It's been a tough week of tipping, especially with the Crusaders, Bryn, you know, to keep on top of that.
Yeah, and the Rebels. My arch nemesis, the Rebels. They put an absolute performance against the Waratahs. So, yeah, no good for me. No good for me. I'm not even a tipper. Jeez, I'm just a battler at the moment. So, yeah.
Where are the Waratahs? Where are the Waratahs at? I mentioned it last week. Their squad is too good to be losing these games. Like, a credit to the Rebels. I actually was really impressed with the way they played, and you know, getting the result at home, and they need to be seriously thought about now. I actually think there's a bit of steel in that squad. You know, they've got a few big guns injured to come back as well. So, you know, their ability to slip into the 8 is actually genuine now for the Rebels. But the Waratahs, I just don't know what's going on. They're like taking 3 options of 3 when, you know, they're behind. You know, I don't know. It was just never felt like they were going to win that game. Missing opportunities, you know, doing that. You know, they create all these opportunities. They're not getting the points or the reward for it, and then they find themselves chasing. I mean, from where they were last year, getting into the 8, you know, they were serious contenders. And I think Coleman's a great coach. I just don't know where the mojo's at the moment.
If memory serves me correct, Bryn, you picked the Rebels.
No, I tried to convince him.
Oh.
He tried to convince me, mate, and I should have gone with it. But again, I just think Jip and I, we've talked about it, that the squad that they have and how they were last year, you'd think that they were going to change for their Rebels game. But no, the Rebels have come along, and I'm going to have to start picking them. Oh, actually, maybe if I don't start picking them, they can keep using my screen and saying that I don't back them, and I could just be their spokesman, saying this guy's an idiot. Let's keep putting him up on board. This is what this idiot's thinking in Japan and from New Zealand.
You'll get to the end of the year, you'll find out that their entire year was themed Bryn Hall, and that took them all the way to the playoffs.
Hey, if it works for a team, geez, I've got no problem doing that. I don't have to play them anymore, Ross, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, now you're not having to play them.
Yeah, all they've got is a photo of Bryn Hall with his bicep up with Super Rugby titles written on it in the changing room.
Yeah.
No, they won't, man. They'll have me getting bumped off from Marty Severe. They'll go, this idiot.
Absolutely, but in saying that, the Rebels are going to play the Chiefs away this weekend, so they really stand no chance of that, I would have thought. Chip.
Oh, I think Bryn should pick them. I'll go the Chiefs. Bryn can pick the Rebels.
No, I won't be going the Rebels. I'll be going the Chiefs.
Yeah. Speaking of the Chiefs, interesting stat. I noticed Damian McKenzie is so far ahead on kick meters from everybody else. They are kicking long, Jipper.
Yeah, and a lot. They kick a lot. But it's because they've got that swarming mindset in their kick chase. Like, it's such a, you know, they pride themselves in those effort areas, and they swamp teams. They try to trap you down there. And they say, if you want to come out of your half, you're going to have to be pretty good to do it, because we'll get a turnover and make you pay.
Yeah, give the ball to Sean Stevens. Call it a try.
But they've got such good aerial, wingers, and Sean can play that role as well at times. So, it's smart to utilise that part of their game.
Just on their kicking game, they're winning a lot of the territorial kind of plays with having the likes of Sean Stevenson and Damian McKenzie kicking long into the 22 area. A lot of teams are actually then trying to kick it out, and they're getting in a net game from the 40-metre line and being able to then go into attacking phases off that. So, it's a massive weapon that they're using. Damien and Sean Stevenson's boots, whether it be from 10 or being able to go 1 or 2 passes from Damien to give to Shooter and to give it 50, 60 metres on the fly. It's been massive. And coming back to Jip's point around them swarming defence and teams, whether they want to try and counter-attack out, and then it's a click opportunities of a knock-on that they score off, or being able to kick it to the 40-metre line and then using their set attack off that.
The other weapon I like is the way that they're using Atene Nanai-Seturo. Like, at times in the past, I felt like he's gone missing from games, and he's got far too good a skill set to go missing from games. Using him in the midfield when the opposition is reeling, Jip, is just so dangerous.
Especially if he can catch some tight forwards in and around their defensively. Like, he is just so electric. And that's not a slight on tight forwards. The reality is that they, when they're tired, it's just a guy like him can become very troublesome if there's 2 of them together. And he picks on that. Like, he's got that sevens background. He knows about, I suppose, defenders' body language and what areas. And he's not afraid to head a little bit infield to find that weak defender, rather than just trying to stay within a system. And he looks good in the glide, man. He looks fit, he looks healthy, and he's got something X factor about him, doesn't he? Every time he touches the ball, you almost feel something's going to happen. He'll come out the other side of the defence. But he's also shown a versatility with his kicks as well. So I don't know. I think he's just maturing as a rugby player, and he's understanding the 15s game a little bit better, and when opportunities are there and when they're not.
Hey, before we get to the Opiki semi-finals, let's just go through the tipping for this weekend. So obviously Chiefs for both of you. Blues, Crusaders. How do you see that going, Jip?
Blues. Now, it is going to be a tight one, because if you go off the final last year, Patrick Tuipulotu went off the field, not sure where his injury's at. I don't know where Sam Darry's at. I think he might still be injured. So it's a big opportunity for a guy. I mentioned James Tucker a few weeks ago and how important he could be to that Blues squad, and making sure that they've got, I suppose, plan A, B and C at line-out time, because a guy like Sam Whitelock is not going away, and you have to be very, very creative to outfox Sam. So I think that'll be a key area, and I'd say it'd be a key game plan for Crusaders is, early on, let's just put it out and chance our arm and really get those demons coming back. But I think if the Blues can provide that platform at home, they'll go in as favourites, and I'll take my patch off and pick them instead.
What about your patch, Bryn?
Yeah, I think the points that Jip brings on, if you're going to get a result, obviously pick the Crusaders, but I think the set piece wise will be massive for around them. Whether that, especially at line out, I think they'll probably take a little bit of confidence in that second half of the Blues game, the worries that they had at line out time in the second half. They'll be chomping at the bit to try and exercise a few more demons when it comes to set piece wise for the Blues, but they're going to have to get their execution is going to have to be a lot better. I know they changed a lot of players, so they'll get probably a strong 23, but like I said before, the decision around who's going to be in the midfield at the 12 will be very, 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 very important for the Crusaders. But very tight game. But again, I'll pick the Crusaders. But yeah, they're running out of chances. The chances they've got to get it right. It's a must win for them, I think. 1 out of 3, they can't go 1 out of 4, because that takes away the ability to have a final at home, which is very pivotal coming into the quarterfinal and semi-final stage, having that home advantage.
I get the feeling that's not heart and head picking them, Bryn. I get the feeling it's definitely heart, but head's a little 50-50 on it.
Well, I just think with how they've played, it doesn't give you, if you're a punter, you look at the confidence, and they're not, they're not 3 from 3, they're not 2 from 3, they're 1 from 3. But I know they will get a bit of better around their selections, and I think the 23 that will be selected, you'll see of them a little bit more moving forward. And it'll be a hell of a week. I know the Blues week, it's always a good preparation week, and there'll be a bit of edge in training, especially coming on the back of a loss. Okay,
Brumbies versus MP, that seems quite straightforward, Jip.
Yeah, Brumbies felt for MP the other night though. It was tough on them, but couldn't get it done. Perth is a tough place to go, but yeah, Brumbies will be pretty hard.
It's not an easy go from Moana Pacifica at the moment, Bryn.
No, well, look, they should be. You'd like to think they could be 2 from 3, sitting on 2 wins, but last couple of minutes of those two games against Ndrua and the Force, it's cost them 2 wins. So yeah, very, very tough start for them. They could be sitting pretty 2-3, very similar to Ndrua, but obviously that's not the story for them at the moment.
Landers v Force, Bryn.
Landers. You have to think the Landers. I think they showed enough. I think obviously they didn't get the result against the Chiefs, but I think having Aaron Smith back and Shannon Frizzell and De Groot, it'll bode them well, and I think they'll get their first one. Definitely get their first one of the year.
Yeah, definitely the Landers. I actually thought that score probably flattered the Chiefs. They were in that game. Definitely looked a lot better than previous weeks.
Clark Dermody definitely looked a little bit happier. He kind of smiled a little bit in the post-match.
Well, he didn't have to talk about 50 points, so he's probably happy about that. I still don't think he'd be overly happy. But
no.
It's an improvement nonetheless.
You've got to smile at some point though, don't you?
You do.
And the Reds versus the Drua. Now, away from home in Queensland, Bryn, do you think that the Drua can back up against the Reds?
No, I don't think they can. I think the Reds will just pip them. I think when it will come to set piece time, I think that's where they'll get the job done there. But if it was in Lautoka or Suva, I'd be picking the Ndrua. But I still want to see them try and winning from home a little bit more. Like I know they haven't been here in the competition for a while, and they have shown a lot of promise in the preseason. But for me, I've just got to see it. But I'm going to be picking the Reds this week. Yeah,
look, I'd love to pick the Drua, but I think the Reds are just too methodical. I don't think they'll get the opportunities that were presented to them in the conditions in Lautoka. Sorry, got there in the end.
You did. Now we've got a big weekend of semi-finals coming up in Opiki. We've got Matatu versus the Blues and the Manawa versus the Poa coming off that third round. It's a very quick competition, so you feel like you're just getting going, which I suppose is tough for some of the teams that aren't the Manawa chip. It takes time to get going. The Manawa hit the ground running and the others have been getting their game together. How hard is it to get going in 3 weeks of a competition to keep up with a leader like that? How long should it take a team to hit their straps, Jip?
Yeah, I mean, they do. They have a pre-season fixture and they have some time pre-Christmas together, but it's probably, that's where the growth in the game is providing more games and potentially maybe trans-Tasman opportunities as well. But I think all the sides have presented really well. I think the quality of football that's been played and the style, it's certainly entertaining. You talk about, I think it was 30-odd minutes ball and play for both games. So there's plenty of action and there's plenty of tries. So I just think what makes them different is they've just got a pack that they just go to. We used to see it with the Crusaders as, Bryn will know this, is they'd go to their set piece. They go to a scrum, they go to a driving maul, and that's how they would, drain teams and get the results. And that's exactly what the Chiefs Manawa did. They were behind, and they just went driving maul try, big scrum turnover try for Kennedy Simons. So if you're going to beat them, you cannot switch off at any stage when it comes to a line out or a scrum.
It was 46-38 Chiefs over Matatu on the weekend. That seemed like a pretty big step up from Matatu, Bryn. They started incredibly strongly.
No, they did. They were 19-7 up after 20 minutes and really put the pressure on the Chiefs Manawa. But I think it just comes back to Chipper's point. Their set piece is so dominant and their forward pack is so dominant. You've got to be able to stay with them for the whole 80. And then even if you do that, you've got to be able to take away their backs as well. So the complementary play that they have at the moment, they'll tire you out through your set piece, whether it be scrum, maul, even your pick and goes in and around the close quarters. It's able then to be able to go out to the backs with the likes of Willison. And even Hazel Tubico, I think her game management, her kicking ability as a triple threat is massive for that Chiefs Manawa team. But if Matatu go through and they beat the Blues, I think they'll take confidence in knowing that if they do get things right for a certain amount of time, that first 20 minutes, they have an opportunity to beat the Chiefs Manawa. But it's going to take a very special team to do that. And they're playing a Blues team who, is at home. And I think they did show improvements and have been able to get that result late against the Poa, who I think, if you're looking at the Poa side, probably thought that one got away. 22-12. in the 71st minute, and then with the likes of the 9 and 10 combo of Cottrell and Puckett coming in to be able to do the quick taps and I guess build that tempo in the last 10 minutes was a little bit too much for the Polar. So it's been a great spectacle of all sides. I think all four sides play a different way, but Chiefs Manawa, they're the one team that are dominant, that they show dominance and are probably a little bit better than the three other teams at this stage.
Do you see any chance of the Power getting close to Manawa in the semi and getting an upset, Chip?
Well, if there is a side that can turn games on its head, it is the Power, but I just don't see their biggest weakness in the round robin play was they couldn't match them scrum time. But to be fair, after that game, Murray has really stepped up and got that pack humming. So it will be a different beast for the Manawa, maybe not as easy as they think, but it's just making sure they can do that for 80 minutes because the Chiefs Manawa won't go away. They'll keep coming to it because they know it's such a strike play. But you'd have to think, based on form and what we've seen, the Chiefs get that one.
Yeah, the Blues, on the other hand, I mean, they got that win against the Power. They should have beaten Matatu if it wasn't for a conversion at the end, Bryn, a couple of weeks ago. Do you see the Blues taking that game out, being at home, considering the arsenal they have in the backs, and when they do get going, they're almost impossible to stop?
Well, I guess that's the challenge for the Blues. I think it really is a coin flip between those two teams. You'd have to think Matatu coming into set piece wise, they'll want to try and dominate that area, and then give the opportunities of Grace Brooker, who's been great for the Matatu this year. But the biggest thing for the Blues is that they can get their power athletes in there and being able to get the offload game and get good go full ball. They've got a great inside pairing with their midfielders and their outside backs who have talked around with Colossi and Vahakolo, getting balls into those hands. And I think the one thing that I have liked that I saw on the weekend is the ability of their bench coming on to be able to give that impact. I talked around the 9 and 10 coming on and I guess changing that game in the last 10 minutes. That could be the difference in the back end of the game, because traditionally against these two teams, whether it be Canterbury and Auckland in previous Farah Palmer Cups, it always comes down to those last 5 minutes, and the bench could be crucial, in which the Blues did very well against the Pole on the weekend. Looking
forward to the 12 battle. You said Brooker, but I thought Maliapo, her performance on the weekend was second to none. Obviously came onto the scene earlier and probably hasn't played as much a role in the Black Ferns of late, but man, she's put her hand up for a test match this season for sure. And I mean, both those players are putting their hands up. So that battle of the midfield is going to be really, really exciting.
One-on-one, she is a nightmare to tackle, Zipper.
Oh, and just looks so, like I always say, you love watching Adi Savia play. He always does everything with a smile on his face, just full of energy. It's like she's the same, like it's infectious to watch. It just looks like she just loves the game of footy and enjoys the, the competitive edge of it.
Yeah, and she's bloody good at it too. So, Jipper, for you, who's in the final?
Manawa Matatu.
Same.
There we go. Jeez, it's gone against the Blues. He must believe it. He must believe it.
It's just it's the Amy Rule factor. Georgia Ponsonby, that type 5 they've got. There's a lot of young players in the Blues type 5, and they'll be seriously tested. They are a chance, but I can't sit on the fence, can I? So
No, and we're happy that you don't. Okay, once again, thank you very much, James Parsons. Let's see you again next week, and Bryn Hall as well. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, boys.
Cheers, Ross.
Catch you all next week on the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Don't forget, catch the Opiki finals this weekend, the Six Nations, see whether Ireland's going to get that Grand Slam. Of course, Super Rugby Pacific as well on Sky. Catch all of the feedback, all of the articles on rugbypass.com through the social feeds. If you want to get a hold of us, send us an email, aotearoarugbypod@sky.co.nz. Go to our submissions feed if you want to send us a video with your opinion. The URL will come up down here in just a moment. We'd really love to hear from you, engage with you, ask us any questions that you have, and we'll attempt to answer them. Thank you very much once again. Mā te wā.